Built for builders, from beginners to pros, this is where great backyards begin. Welcome to the Ultimate Deck Podcast, your source for backyard building tips, product breakdowns, and pro advice from the front lines of the industry. Here are your hosts, Shane Chapman and Wade Laurent.
Welcome back to the Ultimate Deck Podcast. Wade and Shane.
I am here.
On the mic.
This mic.
What you up to?
I'm actually just texting Jordan right now to let him know that I'm not going to be there at 9 a.m. tomorrow to do sausage processing. Big sausage party tomorrow. Big old sausage party. I forgot to buy pork today. I needed to buy like 15 pounds of pork to like mix into the... And there's a butcher that opens at 8 a.m. tomorrow, but I've already told one other guy that I'm going to be at his place at 8 to grab some grinders and like packaging stuff for making sausage. So anyways, I just pushed it back an hour. I was like, I'm supposed to be there at 9, but I'm not going to be there till 10 because I'm going to have to stop and get pork tomorrow morning.
Thought you were doing that because you had now committed to a late night hockey game tonight, and you're like, well, I'm not going to get up and go grind sausage. So
nope, I'm still going to go do that.
Speaking of sausage parties, by the way, hockey game tonight, 11:15.
Ready. Can't wait. Do I know anybody on this team?
Lyle. You've played with Lyle, not the electrician, the other Lyle. I think you've met him before, played with him before on a different team, maybe. I don't know.
I'll tell you what, when you said Lyle, I was thinking the electrician. So.
You have played with Lyle. Here's a funny story. You have played with Lyle before because you subbed one time last year and you sat down beside Lyle and Lyle said, he's like, oh, finally I'm not the oldest guy in the team.
Oh.
Lyle's at that time was like 52.
Yeah.
And you sat down. He thought for sure you were in your 60s because you're white beard.
I'm old looking.
And I was like, oh no, Lyle, you're still the oldest guy in the team.
Yeah.
No, how old are you? Not 60, Lyle. So.
Anyways, 40
at
that time.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's funny. So,
okay, we're gonna help you today to figure out, I guess, if you have some rotten deck boards and what you can do about it if you do.
No dude about it.
This is kind of like primarily a wood deck episode, but I do want to touch a little bit about composite boards as well in this because maybe they're not rotting, but you may need to replace one at some point for some other reason, and we should why not just touch on that as well?
Certainly.
So,
and there's wood under.
There is probably wood underneath it,
so you can check that. If you don't want to check deck boards, check your framing boards.
Right.
Okay, fine.
But with every wood deck board, wood deck that has wood boards on it, almost for sure at some point somebody's going to have some boards that start to rot out at some point. That's when people wait to decide to replace them, is they wait until they fall through one and then they're like,
yeah, they don't even...
What kind of stain do you have that can extend the life of my deck for 4 or 5 more years?
I put my foot through a board and now I just kind of want to stain the rest of them.
Like wood filler that can work with this. But no, sometimes you'll get some boards in the deck that start to get a little soft or spongy or flaking away, rotting in some capacity. And sometimes it's just a bad board, or maybe it's a select spot in the deck. Maybe at one point in time there was an eaves trough that was overflowing and that's been remedied now. So it's not that the whole deck is bad. It's just there's like a spot that needs to be touched up. And so this episode's for you. Easy enough to replace wood deck boards, generally.
You know what? I always find it to be such a pain to remove those.
Yeah, what was the thing we said at golf the other day? Simple.
Oh, yeah.
But not easy.
Golf is simple.
But not easy.
Yeah.
So I think that this is another one of those things. Simple in the fact that to replace a wood deck board that was installed any length of time ago, probably all that you have to do is back out some screws, face screws, and then pull the board out and put a new board in and screw it back down. Simple. However, circumstantially, environmentally, there may be some things that complicate that. Most commonly that the screw heads may be filled with dirt, filled with crap, sunken into the boards are swelled up and covered over the screw head, or painted or stained over, any number of things. And then even if you manage to get that far, if none of those things have happened, sometimes if they're not a stainless steel screw, they just shear off when you go to back them out. I
think the better way to say that would be like, sometimes the screw will back out.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not backing out.
Yeah.
Almost for sure, they were put down with a screw that was not meant to be.
Just break off.
Yeah, it just breaks off. And
Even if they
it's
were meant to be.
even if it's a coated screw, that coating wears off as it goes in, and it's like,
Totally. That's what
it
happens.
breaks off.
Copper ends up corroding the screw a bit. It's holding the board fine. It just doesn't have that strength anymore to be torqued the
Right.
way your probably impact driver is going to slam it and like torque the crap out of it backwards. And it's like, it's been weakened a bit and now it just can't
Handle
handle it anymore, and it snaps off.
So it is hard to take those out.
Yeah. And for the most part, if they break off, it's fine. The board comes off and it shears off where the board was connected to the joist.
Yep.
You might have to tap it down with a hammer or whatever, but like you
Or
can get
break
the
it
new
off.
board off. It's fine.
No problem.
For the most part. But that's all that's really required to do that. You can pop that board back out. Now, it's going to be discolored. It's not going to look the same as the other boards. It's never going to. The other ones are aged and dirty. If you put it out there and it gets a few years of sun as well, and then at some point you use some sort of deck brightener and cleaner on the whole thing and then restain it, yeah, in a few years you can probably get it back. But it's going to look like a replaced board for a while before that ever happens. But it is what it is.
It should be really good because then you'll be able to tell the story about where you fell through your deck.
Yeah.
It's always a good conversation starter.
Right. Now, one thing that some people ask us is, if I see this question a lot on Reddit, and it's not maybe not as much for like for rotten boards that they're trying to repair, but sometimes when people get checking in boards or they've got a knot hole that pops or any sort of defect on the board, they want to know what kind of wood filler they can use to fill it out, and just don't do it. None.
It just doesn't work.
Just get used to the crack. It's there. It's not hurting anything. Don't fill it. Because none of it works. Even if it says if it's for exterior use, it's a very temporary fix and it looks like shite every time.
Because it just won't stain up properly.
That
So it's
too.
not going to work.
Oh, but it says it's stainable. Yeah,
It's
well,
not.
it's not.
It's not really.
It's
like-
more stainable than the non-stainable stuff.
Yeah.
But stainable doesn't mean it's going to look like wood once it's stained. It just means it'll absorb some stain.
Yeah.
Still white to begin with, or tan.
They wrote stainable on there because you want it to be.
Yeah.
So they said, okay.
Anyways, that rarely is a long-term fix for anything. And that stuff ends up just like, and again, because of the things we talked about in other episodes, the wood expands and contracts. That stuff, it's going to pop out. It's not going to stay in there forever. It's not going to fill appropriately. The wood's going to expand and contract. It's going to pop that stuff out. And it's never going to look that good.
I would say that if you're at the point where you're thinking about whether you need to replace that board or not, you probably just should. You know?
Yeah.
It's just like you already know that answer, actually. You know? You're just like, you don't want to. You're hoping somebody else gives you an answer that's like, I just don't want to do the work, or I don't want to buy the board. Hope somebody somewhere in the world says I can leave it.
Yeah.
Leave it if you want.
Right.
But you shouldn't.
People do that in Reddit all the time. They go on there, they'll post a question, and they'll argue with people until they find the people where they hear what they want to hear.
Yeah.
You should replace that. Well, I don't really think I need to do a full replacement of it. It's like, well, what do you hear you're asking for then? If you know that already, what do you ask for? And then the next day it's like, replace it. And he argues with everybody. And then somebody's like, I think it'll be fine. Just do this. And he's like, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
What are you here for?
I was totally just going to
Confirmation
leave.
bias?
Yeah. I was going to just staple some like window screen over it and then rub wood filler in there. And then it was like a drywall patch, but for a board. Will that work?
Yeah.
I was like, fine.
One thing you definitely should do though is that rot is rarely completely visible. Like when you start to see something that's rotting, it's usually just the tip of the iceberg. There's usually a lot more going on underneath. So if you see some deck boards that are starting to rot, don't just be like, oh, I'll just pop this board off and put a new one on there. Do some digging and inspecting first. Like take that off, have a look underneath, get underneath the deck, poke around the joist, make sure that structurally it's still okay.
Yep.
It's possible that just the deck board itself was a crappy board or whatever.
Yeah,
but
and that can happen.
often the rot's coming up from underneath. It's like the joist connection between the joist and the board started rotting first. By the time you saw it on the surface of the board, the stuff underneath is like well gone.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that's the safety part right there, is that if the structure itself, it's one thing to step through a deck board, but if the joist itself is rotting out, then the deck falls down.
Yeah.
So that's not ideal. So do that. Check that frame for hidden damage you may not see. If you can't get the screws or the nails or whatever other thing, you can use pry bars and things to use some leverage to snap those boards out of there. You're not trying to save the board. It's junk. So you can try to rip that board out of there. You're not trying to salvage or anything. This thing you might run into sometimes is that a brand new board may not fit in the old hole very well because the boards have all shrunk that were on there. They may be old, or maybe at one time they were milled from a different dimension slightly or something. You might get this new board and it's straight from the mill and it's got high moisture content and it's measuring 5 3/4 inches wide or something, and what you took out of there had shrunk to whatever. And so a couple things you can do. You can sometimes let that board dry out, allow it to shrink before you try to install it, or you might have to rip a little bit off it. You have to cut it down and try to squeeze it in there and then hope that it shrinks and dries and leaves a gap as well. But you hear that from time to time as well. People are like, the new board doesn't fit.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not, I bought the wrong size. And it's like, no, it's the right board. It's just a new one.
Yeah. I'd be tempted to friction fit that in, right? I would run it through a table saw just to get a little bit off of it. And then I would want to sort of pound that into place because it's going to shrink.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
There's a really good chance that when that decking all went down, it was all slammed together tight.
Yeah.
Because then when the board shrinks, you get your gap. That's a great way to do that.
Pretty common practice. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And then this time, if you've got some boards that are rotting, it's probably time, like, you can replace this for now and solve the today problem, but it's probably time to start considering what you're going to do in the near future about this whole project. So does this whole thing need replaced? Should we start setting some money aside to do a complete replacement at some point? Because once it starts to rot, like, the other boards probably aren't that far behind if this is an older project. So it's probably time to start thinking, like, what am I doing here? And if it's, I don't know what the over under is in this thing, but if you've got a deck and there's 11 boards that need replaced, it's like, okay, what are we doing? Is now the time we should just take this all off and put a composite board on here, or what? Like, how much is worth trying to salvage here?
Yeah. It's at least time to start preparing.
Yeah.
It's time to start thinking about replacing the deck. Maybe you can replace the 11 boards because you're going to Mexico or something, but like, it's time to start thinking about it for sure.
Yeah. Now, there's sometimes when the boards are starting to get really old, they're not dangerously rotted, but they're just like, they're getting pretty pitted up and like weathered and like really starting to look pretty rough and worn and whatever else. And sometimes people are just looking for some sort of, like, they look crappy, so they don't want to just do a clear stain on it because whatever, and trying to hide the surface and do something. It's like, okay, well, that's the one scenario where I think that those deck over hide your problem type stain products, not stains, but coverings are okay. They're absolutely shit products generally. You don't want to use them typically.
Way to not mix words.
But if you're only trying to buy yourself another year or two out of a deck, that's looking really crappy, and then you're going to tear it off. It's like, well, then that can improve things a little bit, maybe provide a bit of protection in the meantime and look okay for a while. But if you don't have expectations beyond that stuff working more than a year or two, and then the plans to tear it out, fine, go ahead and do that.
Yeah. The other,
because I wouldn't sell you a Q-Tech Extreme in that scenario.
Yeah.
You need glue to hold this thing together. And this stuff doesn't cure, so it's not doing the job.
Not glue. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I mentioned we were going to talk a little bit about composite deck boards. Not because they're going to rot. I mean, if you have early generation stuff 20 years ago, you may have had some problems with it. There was some products that failed back then from sun bleaching and flaking and deterioration.
Yeah,
and
they're more
organic
delaminated,
breakdown,
right? They kind of like broke apart.
Yeah. But if that's you, you're probably doing a full replacement of that stuff. But sometimes even when you go invest in new decking that's great and it's going to last forever, but unfortunately somebody dropped a cigarette on it.
Oh yeah.
Or something, right?
Yeah. Like if you have I don't know, some hot coals, that's all I can think of, right? It's or a stick, like you were using to cook hot dogs or marshmallows or something with.
Yeah. You're doing something goofy with. You've damaged a board in some capacity somehow. People are always like, crap. Like,
yeah. Or you're replacing a window and you like dropped your drill.
Sure.
Right. You're actually working on the house and something happens and hurts the deck board.
Or you spilled some sort of chemical that react, whatever. We don't have to find all the scenarios, I guess, but you have a board that needs replaced, and it can appear to be tricky because they're often not face screwed anymore. And so in some markets, they are face screwed with like composite deck screws, and you can see where they are and you can take those screws back out, but they're often put in with hidden clips. So the sides of the boards are routed or grooved to accept a clip in there, and that's how the boards are fastened down. And it's not always obvious how those can come back out of there. But the thing is, the clips screw, even though it is set below the surface of the deck boards, you can still get at it. It was put down that way. The screw started above and it was driven down below. You can still get at it. Now, sometimes that can be tricky too, because it can also be filled with dirt and crap from the years. But you can get at it with the proper drill bit and pull that clip back, or the screw back out. But you can't always just lift the board straight up, because the clips are, I don't know what you would call it, but they're like they're in the grooves. So they're kind of locked in place a little bit. But you can generally slide them out. So now this thing's kind of almost on a drawer slide of sorts.
Yeah.
And so it's usually not that much more difficult than, and now it depends on what clip you're using too. But if it's just like a Trex Hideaway clip, for example, easy enough to remove. A lot of clips are easy enough to remove. Biscuit style clips. Yep. If you've got the type of clips that have some sort of teeth that bite in and they go in at an angle, whatever, that gets a little bit trickier. But if you're using a clip style, biscuit style clip, loosen those screws off. You can generally slide that board right out the end. And then carefully, you can slide the new board in and align, like float the clips in the groove, slide the new board in, then reposition your clips by sliding them down over top of a joystick and refasten them down. And it can be that easy. Simple.
Not easy.
But in this case, sometimes it can be really easy.
Yeah, but it'll take a little bit of time and some patience.
Yeah.
But it's not difficult.
And if you have a picture frame board, you might have to pop the picture frame out of the way, or just pull the board up a little. Like, it might be a little bit trickier, but it's
you should
still
be able
doable.
to slide those clips 3 joists back and bend that deck board out of there.
Totally.
You shouldn't have to take that picture frame off.
Yeah, that's right. So it's all very possible. You might even have to loosen up the row of screws on the next board too, just to get some more movability in the boards, to be able to kind of like flex them up to the angle you need to get the new board in, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's possible. If these are done with something like a Tiger Claw clip or any angled clip that bites in and doesn't slide very easily, well, it's a different story. Now we're probably cutting that board out.
Or if for some reason you use like those camo edge, like the camo Protect screws that are screwed in on an angle through the board and it's actually fastened.
So those you should
be able to remove
get at those too with the right bit.
and
get those back out and then put new ones in just the same. That should be possible too.
Yep.
But if you can't for some reason get it to screw, and the reason you can't with Tiger Claws or the Trex Hideaway version of the Tiger Claw or the TimberTech Conceal Lock, is that the screw actually went in at an angle before the next board was placed.
Yes.
So once that next board goes on, you can no longer get at the screw in the first place.
Yep.
Even if you could slide the clip, which they're not easy to do because they have teeth on them that bite. So in that case, you basically have to rip the board in half. Take your skill saw, set the depth so you're not deeper than the 1 inch, the thickness of the board or whatever it is. Run the saw all the way down it, and that way you can pop those two halves out.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can get at those clips if you have to loosen them off and get them out of there. The problem is when you go to put the board back in, there's no way to like reuse those same clips and slide a board back in like if you had the biscuit style clips. So we've often told people that that's where those camel screws can be helpful, is that you could slide a new board back in without the clips, but then you're going to use a different fastening system. It can still be hidden, but technically that one's going to get a different fastening system to get it back in there.
Yes.
I think those camel clips are or where it makes sense. Or you may be able to use the biscuit style clips now on that board and where it meets the boards beside it.
Yeah.
So it might be a little bit different, but don't worry. You're the only person who knows that the clips are different on that board. But you might have to pay attention to the width, like the spacing of the clips or something, right?
Yeah. You can also fasten it from the surface.
You could, yeah.
And so you'd want to use, it depends on what product line you're using it. But if the board that you have also has plugs available, that's a way to do it. Again, you're going to see it. Yeah. You will know that those plugs are there.
Yeah.
But at least it's not super obvious,
Yeah, it depends on the board. Some of those hide pretty damn good. Like
some do.
Those AZEK vintage line, I sold some of those today. Dark hickory.
Yeah.
Those ones are always those are pretty tough to find. But yes, versus not having them at all, they're more visible for sure.
Yeah. But
so I don't know how helpful that is to just talk about that process versus seeing a video or whatever, but hopefully that kind of made sense for those who might need to go through this process. I don't know. What are you going to say? Sometimes shit happens and you need to replace a board. There's how you're going to do it.
Yeah. It's not great, but
it's possible.
It is very possible.
Simple. Not easy.
It's just really funny.
See you next week.